History was made this past Sunday at Impact Wrestling's Rebellion. We're going to be talking about that, of course, but also what happened this week on the follow-up on Impact Wrestling on Access TV. You know, short of words, well, I mean, that's how I had to open it. We got a lot to talk about this week, so we're going to head and get on to it. Nigeria and Amanda here, or Miranda here. Oh, wow. I'm so confused about what's happening. I think I'm still so stuck that I just, yeah, it's a loss for words is really, I guess, the best way to describe what's happened over the past 5 days with, you know, our watching of Impact Wrestling. We're here giving you our weekly review of Impact Wrestling on Access TV. We're going to be getting to that in just a few moments. But as you know, we were switching roles this week too, which is kind of strange. It's weird to have the shoe on the other foot. So I got to ask you, Najir, how are you doing today, this week, in this life?
This has been a very abusive week. I had to break up with my partnership with Impact because I was so upset. I mean, I went as far as unfollowing them, and I know it's petty as hell, but I was really just that upset with the results of the pay-per-view. And I also did say last week if Riswan didn't win, I wouldn't be here, but
he's here. I begged him to be here because it's not the same without him. This is a team effort. This is a tag team here, and we had to do it, especially because of all of the viewers that watch this. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, we are doing this every Friday, and it kind of sometimes, you know, happens on different hours, different points of the Friday based off of, you know, what we can do. Also, we got, you know, coast to coast coverage for you. So we got to work through time zones. But make sure that you are subscribed to Big Gold Belt Media's YouTube page. That way you get notified every time a new episode of this drops. So that way, doesn't matter where you're at, you can get this on your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, wherever it is. We got you covered, but we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't, as hard as it is, come to you every Friday to discuss what happened. And let's get, like I said, let's get to it. The fact of the matter is what I've been predicting for months. Just wanted to throw that out there. I knew it in my bones. What was going to happen happened. Kenny Omega beat Rich Swann to become the new Impact Unified Champion. And that's also something strange I'll mention in a minute, how the whole unification word has just left the building since Kenny won. But Kenny Omega is now Impact World Champion. On top of that, he is still the AEW World Champion and the AAA Mega Campeon. So he is the belt collector. He set out what he wanted to do for months now. And so let's talk about that first before we get into this week's Impact. You know, again, for many people, we knew that this was going to be the outcome. The match itself, I thought, was solid. I thought that, especially in the beginning, Rich did exactly what we thought he was going to do and fight tooth and nail. So there was some really great moments and spots for him throughout the match, but it always seemed like it just always felt a little one-sided still, though. You knew that the result was going to happen, and especially that ending sequence with the multiple V triggers, and then ultimately, eating that one-winged angel. It was very definite. That was the one thing too about having the two referees there. The result was very definite. No shenanigans, no room for error. It was a clean finish. So, Najir, I'm going to let you have, even though I know you're pretty exhausted about it, I want to give you the floor so you could share with all of us your thoughts on the match.
Okay, so update. I am refollowing Impact Wrestling, so all is good.
Okay, so this is progress. This is progress. We'll give it some time.
Second thing is maybe I'm the only person in the entire world that felt like Rich Swann was supposed to win, because everybody's coming out like, oh, we know that it was going to happen, and like, maybe I was in disbelief, man.
No. I think there was a lot of people who thought it would be a great story to tell, and we've been on here week after week saying how much of an interesting story it would have told if Rich Swann would have won. I think there's a really healthy population of fans who would have been fine with that outcome happening. I think it was more, you just knew the inevitable because they didn't set all of this up for Kenny not to win, but it would have been a great surprise and still a great story that they could have told. And it would have been almost not even riskier, I think a more creative story that they could have told if Rich won. But this is the more predictable ending.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was looking at. I was thinking like for the better good of storytelling, the better good for the fans. But this is the Kenny Omega crusade here, and he is just conquering each and one of these different territories left and right. So, I mean, the whole belt collector thing, gimmick, and the whole, and I'm also calling this a gimmick too, but the Forbidden Door, which is a gimmick.
Yes. No, it is a gimmick now. It is a gimmick.
Yeah,
it is absolutely a gimmick now. And I don't know if that was always the intention of the Forbidden Door becoming a gimmick, but it has now. Like, I don't know if that was what they were trying to settle or accomplish when they first started to talk about it, but it has wings now and it's its own thing. So I agree.
What's up, Trent? Thanks for stopping in today. Miranda, I'm probably going to let you handle that because you have gave very interesting thoughts about Ace. And I will just premise one thing about Ace is that he absolutely is the future of someone's company. And while he's in Impact right now with his age and his ability and the ceiling for this guy, anything's possible. But in regards to this, what is next for Ace?
Well, that's a really interesting question. One, the X Division Triple Threat Championship match, I loved how it opened the show. I mean, let's face facts about what happened with Rebellion. There were new viewers to Impact Wrestling at Rebellion because of the main event. I don't know the exact buy rate for the show, but from what those who have been saying online, that it was a good buy rate for what the company considered. And then I think also being able to start off that show with a match that, again, the X Division is so unique to Impact Wrestling, and it is one of their best wrestling divisions in all of pro wrestling. So I thought that was a great way to welcome these new fans and say, hey, this is what Impact has to offer. Sure. With that, what we've seen Ace Austin be able to do over the past year is really move back and forth between the main title picture and the X Division. And so for me, going into what we've learned this week on Impact Wrestling on Access TV, a few interesting things, and I think I'm going to get Najir mad again as far as what was been said about, Rich Swann not having a rematch clause in this contract. So he is automatically almost in the back of the line, or he is not eligible for a rematch for his Impact World Championship. So that, with that, Scott D'Amore did announce are going to be holding a five-way, I think it's six, number one contenders match at Under Siege. And over the next few weeks, we're going to see qualifying matches to determine who those competitors are going to be. I see Ace Austin getting into one of those roles. So far, we already have Chris Bay, Sami Callihan, and Matt Cardona. So there's 3 spots left, and I could see Ace Austin getting into that. But it does also seem like, he still has some room in the X division as a formidable competitor against Josh Alexander. So I think that that's the beauty of Ace Austin, is because he's been able to go in between those 2 divisions over the past year. We could see him continue to try and get his belt back in the X division, but he may also go for a cup of coffee in the world title picture. And you're right, Najir, like, he is a world champion somewhere, whether that be Impact or somewhere else. I could easily see him being in that number 1 contenders match coming up, and he fit really well. And he can also be the wild card factor in there, because you have Madman Fulton always in the background. You never quite know. But also his ability in the ring. He is so smart and so fast, too. He is incredibly cocky, but that's because he's kind of earned that right with his wrestling ability.
Yeah. What's up, Terrence? Thank you for coming through, showing love as always.
Yeah.
I want to go back to Rebellion really quick. Now, again, me being the one naive about Rich Swann having an opportunity to win that match, and just for the better booking and all the way up into Double or Nothing, AEW's pay-per-view, which, it just makes sense, the Double or Nothing thing, and maybe it still happens. Who knows at this point? But I will say that there's another extremely disappointment that I had, and I thought you were going to mention it, but I guess you decided to take the nice way out on this one. And when you talked about that match, you talked about the first beginning parts of it. It definitely was booked the way I thought it was going to be booked. But Rich Swann blew himself out. It's probably one of the most underwhelming matches I've seen him put on. He looked fatigued, and I don't actually believe that it was a cardio thing or injury or whatnot. I honestly think he was in his own head, and I can't blame him. I mean, this is a huge match, and I know, like, he's your champion and whatnot, but these are a group of people that has been working not in front of fans, but essentially working in home territory for about a year, and working with their peers closely. So they're going to put on good matches. I mean, this is kind of the formula of NXT, when people are like, well, why NXT matches so much better than the main rosters? Because they usually have gotten more time to prep for these matches, and the formula worked, and it is what it is. But I think for the idea of working Kenny, which we don't know if he's ever worked them or not. We don't know if they've had any, if they, warmed up or had some matches, behind the scenes or whatnot.
Yeah.
They're professionals. So I wouldn't think they would do that. I wouldn't think they would work a pre-match. I think they would say, like, this is how we're going to work, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, that pay-per-view is historic, and a lot of eyes watched it. And that's a big moment. And we've seen in all sports, people who have won MVPs get to the Super Bowl and just completely disappear.
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes the big stage can be a lot for people. And this is why I was very adamant that Swann should have been on Dynamite, gotten some type of run-ins, whatever, in front of a crowd, out of his comfort zone, whatever it may be, to ultimately build this matchup more for the fans, but for them as well, too. So I was a little disappointed, because he definitely seemed blown out by the second half of that match, and he kind of beat himself mentally. And then the match was the match.
I think that was very obvious, and I didn't know if that was meant to happen, if that was part of the story. For me, I could understand his strategy of going in hard right away. That really the way to win this match was to try and go quick and fast and beat Kenny as soon as he could, because Kenny is one who's had long matches. I mean, he could go for an hour plus. And so the longer you're in the ring with Kenny Omega, the less likely you are to leave that ring with a win. It's just, that's statistics. And so to me, that felt like part of the story, but you're right. It could have been something deeper, and it could have been that he was in his head. I mean, it was the biggest match of his career, as far as facing the AEW world champion, the platform that it was on. I mean, we've talked too about the back and forth. I think ultimately too, between AEW and Impact, and there was a lot of people talking about that over the weekend too, that the buildup was very one-sided. And I think what we're going to notice now too is that it will continue to be one-sided. It's still hardly mentioned on AEW television. Kenny's still coming and doing, showing up. I feel like ultimately,
Miranda, on Dynamite, the belts were essentially treated like a prop.
Yes.
Just keep it 100.
No. Yeah, I absolutely agree, and maybe it's because I'm a little nicer, and I say that you're a little bit more hard hitting, and I'm sugarcoating things a little bit, but not. That's just me, I'm a little bit nicer. But you're absolutely right that they're treated. At the end of the day, they are being treated like props. That's I think where we as Impact Wrestling fans are so upset that after what they've had to do over the past year to rebuild their world championship picture, to bring back those titles, to have them, mean something after they were gone for several months, now you're doing it again, but you're doing it on purpose. You're letting someone else take your belts and use them as props on a television show that you guys don't get to be on. And because they don't, that's another thing. They're not going to be, we are not going to see Impact talent outside of the Good Brothers on AEW television. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, they dolled him at the press conference, and they say if he wins, then he could come to Dynamite. Well, that seems like that invitation is long, by the way. Yeah, what's up, Sam? Appreciate you coming through today.
So, but you're right. They're being treated as props, and they will. And that's the sad part. Impact let this happen. At least previously, when the belts were gone and they were with Tessa before her contract expired, they really couldn't do much. It wasn't their fault. It just was the way that the situation happened. Now they've purposely given their belts to someone who is going to be on another network.
Even given sounds like a nice word. This was literally a donation or some type of sacrifice that happened.
And so I get it. I feel that way. I feel like they are used as props. And for fans, we think, man, maybe we're going to see some crossover on Dynamite, and maybe they're going to get the rub there. But no, I mean, to some credit, it does look like we are going to continuously get Kenny Omega on Impact Television. That was one of the stipulations this week when the show began, that Scott D'Amore told Don Callis, if Kenny Omega is not physically here tonight, he is going to be stripped of the title. Now,
look, that did nothing for me, because that's just as good as them saying that he was going to appear. He was like, he will be in the Impact Zone, then he shows up the last minute in the trailer. Yeah. So, like, if they're going to keep this up now, I'm just going to get just even more annoyed,
Yeah. It's just more of, in some ways it may appease some fans to say, oh, we're not going to have Kenny show up on TV and we're not going to see the belts. I mean, it's yes and no. We didn't really see the belts. We just saw him do this run-in. And it is leading to a 6-man match at Under Siege, Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers versus Eddie Edwards and Finn Juice. So we are going to continuously see him. But again, it doesn't feel as meaningful. It just feels like, because all of this is happening in the world of Impact, it is just, it's not a door. It's like a one-sided mirror.
Yeah, I've been saying that a lot. Like, again, the whole, and Stan, here's the thing to that comment really quick. I always say the Impact is one of the most resilient promotions of all major promotions ever at this point. And they definitely booked themselves into a corner here, and it doesn't, nothing benefits good outside of the fact that, their loyalist fans will stick by, but like, there is no increase in fandom. A pay-per-view buy doesn't automatically mean that you grew your fan base. It's
it
just
doesn't
like
translate
people tuned in. Like
to a weekly viewer.
I didn't get to say this last night on the Big O Belt Wrestling Podcast Weekly. But it's much like the Floyd Mayweather and Jake Paul match that's kind of happening. It's a big match, and it's a big match to them. They're going to promote it as it being a mega match, and it's for bragging rights and et cetera, et cetera. But like at the end of the day, when that match happens, the greatest boxer of all time going against one of the biggest YouTubers of all time, it ain't gonna do anything for anybody besides the match happen, and then that's that. And it's like at the end of the day, this felt like, you know, more of a cash grab for Floyd, obviously, because he only does anything if it makes money.
Yep.
And essentially how this is comparison to Impact is like, this was like supposed to be some form of a partnership that should probably generate revenue, but also create fandom, and it's done nothing for that. I don't see new fans going after the way for Impact. I see Kenny Omega's crusade and the whole belt collecting gimmick being the thing, but other than that, it only benefited them. I just don't see it with like anybody else.
No.
Like it damn sure ain't help Swan. No one's checking for that guy.
No. And maybe, who knows, he will come back and end up being able to be a part of this number one Contenders match. And that's, you know, again, the continuous underdog story. But at that same time too, I don't think anyone is going to pay or want to see Kenny Omega versus Swan 2. I'm sorry. It just they're not going to want to see it. So if anything, I'd rather that spot be filled by somebody else on the roster who could benefit from this than tease a Rich Swann Kenny Omega 2. You know, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, I mean, when you got this 6-man number one Contenders thing coming up, I would actually be disappointed if Rich Swann does have one of those slots. Yeah. He's not the answer right now. And
no.
Somebody said that to me, and I was like, damn, that's the truth. He's not the answer here.
He's not. No. I mean, think about it though. Someone they are teasing is Moose. You know, Moose went up to Scott D'Amore, pretty much demanded the opportunity to face Kenny Omega. Scott said that he had to go, you know, and compete. So who knows? We may see Moose in this match, and that would be an interesting buildup, like we've been, you know, as we teased and thought about a few months ago. But again, even anybody in this match, even if some of the contenders already announced, would be more of an interesting matchup at this point than a Rich Swann, Kenny Omega 2. So to me, that's a little bit of a silver lining, being able to tease a new opponent for Kenny Omega, and maybe something that is a little bit more interesting, maybe an opponent that's more formidable, or just something that, you know, is going to be different. But at the end of the day, you're saying about who was winning or who's benefiting from this. Honestly, I think the winner in all of this is New Japan, because they've been able to play both sides now. Yeah. They have talent on Impact, and now they have a working relationship with AEW, where they actually have New Japan talent that's actually been on TV, and we are going to get a New Japan match on AEW television. You know, El Fantasma is going to be on Impact Wrestling next week, so I feel like the winner in this is New Japan, because they're whatever they're doing it the right way, because they're playing both sides. Now, it'll be interesting to see. You know, New Japan it's almost like a triangle, because we have seen Impact talent on U.S. New Japan television when New Japan's strong. So I think that's been great too. But again, I think the lines haven't been as clear. The cross promotion hasn't been as clear as it can be, or as apparent. So I think that's, you know, something that's very interesting, where New Japan, say for example, when they had the New Japan Cup, you know, the way that, you know, it was advertised on Impact Wrestling when Chris Bay was in that show, it wasn't as clearly communicated in New Japan, because it just, you know, they're independent wrestlers, where, you know, Impact clearly stated an Impact talent was going to be on New Japan television. So it's those things that I think every company's interpreting a little different what promotion means.
Yeah. Yeah, nah, you're entirely right. I mean, this whole partnership thing is a very questionable term, because apparently I feel like I don't understand what it means. I thought partnership means that both people gain from this. Going back to Rebellion, I feel like it was a solid pay-per-view. Let's not discredit that at all. But considering the ramifications of the historic main event, I was disappointed in how it went about. Me as the fan, me as a wrestling enthusiast, and me as just a random person that happened to just cut it on and be like, oh, okay. Because one, I felt like, again, Rich Swann definitely was gassed through the second part of the ring, through the match. Two, I want to Rich Swann to win because I thought just the idea of booking him being, the first Black AEW champion, the first, person to have championships in two major American promotions like this. In this generation, so I say, especially Black too. I definitely don't think it was Black, but I mean, like back in the day, let it be known that WWE was definitely in New Japan doing all types of things, and also was TNA with people like Kurt Angle and whatnot doing in both promotions. Like, so these things kind of happen, but Rich Swann doing it would have major historical ramifications. So like a historical event, let some historical come out of it,
Yeah.
And I just feel like again, Kenny Omega winning was the inevitable. And it just does nothing. At this point now, again, him having those belts just literally are props. It's essentially as good as the belts I had behind me sitting up here. Like I bought them and they sit there, but it did not make me more of a champion or whatnot. And I don't think that no one values him more as a champion. I think it's more of the idea that, he's just going to go and probably work more promotions. Where will he go next? That's what we all care about. And I just want to give a shout out to my co-host Will, and I believe it was also our guest on the show last night, Dwayne Allen from the Wrestling Realm. They both were talking about the territory days, about when you were the NWA champion, you went to different territories and you made your other person look strong, and you ultimately, you won. And again, if you even think about it that way, well, if it was about Kenny Omega and he was ultimately going to win and take the belt, which is a little bit of the reversal roles, it also didn't make Swann look strong at all anyway. So it's like win, everything for Kenny Omega and for AEW at a minimum. It's really all about Kenny Omega. But it was like loss for Impact, major loss for Swann. Swann is not on no one's radar right now for this number one contenders, and he's not getting a rematch. And then ultimately, I think too that if you do decide to build Swann up again, oh, what do you know? It is the underdog story 4.0 on the horizon. And I'm pretty sure we're tired of that.
Yeah. I think after a while, you just got to take a new turn. And maybe we will. Maybe this is the beginning of a new iteration, a new character for Rich Swann. We saw that kind of with Moose and EC3. And that was, I thought that was really a good way of reintroducing and tweaking Moose's character. I think Rich Swann is having to come to that point where, he had one of the biggest defeats of his entire career on the biggest stage that he's had. I think you have to regroup and re-strategize. And if you're going to come back, how are you going to be different? What's going to be different now? And what are you doing that you didn't do before? I was just going to briefly mention, I think one of the only ways that you can kind of start fixing this is eventually people are going to have Kenny Omega fatigue, because now you're going to see him in two different spots. I think if you pull him out, pull him away from AEW television for a while and you only see him on Impact, that may be a way to kind of help remedy some of this. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I do feel like AEW still relies on Kenny Omega every single week, but if they can't put Impact talent on AEW television, think about maybe pulling Kenny Omega back for a few weeks and only having him on Impact. And that way too, I think it will help.
What are you saying? You're talking about like actually helping Impact to a circumstance?
Look, I know I'm throwing these crazy ideas out there to see what will stick, but that could be something as simple as that, just not having him, because also, as you know, like AEW television is packed. You have 3 days full of content too. You could use that time to elevate another story for just a few weeks, and you don't need to have Kenny Omega on there. Because there's lots of other stories they could tell in that short time frame. But again, just an idea that came about. But I think there's still, that's even a possible problem that could come up, is that people aren't going to be gravitating towards Impact because they know they can just watch it on AEW. And and if you're only going to get Kenny Omega for the last 2 minutes of a show, what's the point of watching?
Yeah. That's all that is. At the end of the day, like it again didn't help Impact. And I'm still looking for the vision here on that. So that's my conquest right now, is to understand what is the end game here. What's the game plan? What's the blueprint? What is the vision that is with all of this comes about. If this is truly just about trying to make Kenny Omega the biggest star in the entire world, well, he's still going to have to go to WWE. That's not happening. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
That's a good. I mean, to talk about the inevitable, I think that's.
Oh yeah,
it's
before
almost
AEW. I said he had to do it. He had.
Yeah,
to do it.
yeah. I think it's almost trying to redefine what the biggest star in professional wrestling looks like, as far as not taking that WWE path. But at the end of the day, it's such a valid point. If you want to do that, there's only one road, and he's not going to take that road, and that's fine. Yeah. But then there's always going to be that, I don't want to say controversy, because it's not real controversy. It's just, there's always going to be that deciding, issue of like, is he truly as big as some of the greatest, the legends, because he didn't take that
path. It's the marks will say that, but we know what it is. Any given day, no. But I mean, for my one of my closing remarks to this is, I'm just gonna say, because now that I'm homeless, because I bet my whole house on Rich Swann, and I'm getting word that Rich Swann definitely has to check in order to come back to Baltimore. There's a lot of people in Baltimore, which is a super passionate wrestling town, very upset about how this went about. He let them down. He has to check in now in order to come back home, which is a sad day in Baltimore for him. But no, seriously, I don't know what I'm as a fan still. I just want to know what's next for him, what's next for Impact. But as of right now, my investments are definitely in a very safe margin of Chris Bay and Ace Austin, and I'm definitely curious to see where do they go, as clearly they are the future of Impact Wrestling. Yeah. And if they get an opportunity to reclaim and bring the gold back home, that would be something. And if it is Moose, it's just easily a safe answer. I mean, Moose looks like the answer. But if it isn't,
I hope somebody is the answer. I feel like, whoever is going to be the person, whoever is the person that ends up bringing those titles home, they are going to be made for life. They are going to be Impact legends. And I hope that happens. I hope someone can do that and bring those titles home, and bring them back. And that does happen eventually. And it does, and it's in a clean way too, that it's as clean as when they lost them. Because that's going to be important as well. Definitely. That, whenever the return does happen, that is clean, that it puts someone over that they really see the future in, and that person gets a great opportunity to have a fantastic match with Kenny Omega. I mean, that's hopefully the game plan. That's the long story. How long it's going to take, God only knows. And who that person is, like you said, there's definitely a few names out there that I think would have great matches and could absolutely be the future. I've said this before. Ace Austin is a younger Kenny Omega. Ace Austin with the look, with the attitude, with the wrestling ability. That story would be fascinating to me.
Yeah, I tell you what. If Impact really truly understands the talent that is sitting right there on the roster, then you have to put the rocket pack on them right away. And let's not play it safe no more. Put your talent first. The Swan thing was putting Tony Khan gimmick and the belt collector Omega first. And it's time for them to do a little bit of reversal of roles. And I think what Scott D'Amore did and coming out gave me a little bit of hope that, like, okay, maybe they're going to be shifting things, but it's just hard to have a lot of confidence. But again, we've been in this situation with them, with the loss of Tessa, and then Kylie Ray leaving, and then them losing major talent just recently. So it's not like they're in uncharted territories where they can't do it. But as a fan, I just want to know, will we be having dinner tonight? Because I don't see you leaving to go to the store yet.
Dang, yeah, it's such a good point. But you're right. We've been through this before and seen this, even just in the past year, and people who've been fans for much, much longer.
Hey, look
years
at this.
And years.
Hold on. Hey, who are you, Shelly? I need to know, because that statement right there. right there. You know, that hits home right there. They said representing the DMV that's coming back to here, baby. It's either going to be Chris Bay or Moose. I love that. I'm gonna leave that up for the rest of the show. That's all I'm gonna say. Unless somebody got something better, but there ain't no comic better than that right now.
I don't know. I love that. I mean, hopefully the long game, the plan, the blueprint, though we don't get to see it, hopefully it's there. And gosh, man, it just sounds too. I have to say, it seems like it's a political thing. It seems like there's elements of ego. I don't know for certain, but the fact that how things have turned out and how one-sided this is and how this has just been, these belts are being used as props for this guy to go around and collect belts all over the world. Okay. It just seems like there's so many layers to it that are still that I don't necessarily understand. I think as fans, we're still trying to comprehend as to how this got here, but, I do think that the build up to Under Siege for me is interesting enough that I'm going to keep watching. I want to know who's going to be in that #1 contenders match. Because I do feel like they're giving you a frame of who the future is going to be in that match.
True that. And as wrestling fans, I will say, like, it is a good feeling to not be able to know and kind of predict what's happening. So, like, the intrigue is there. And for the fans who are very happy about how this all played out, and this was definitely booked towards your liking, then sure, that's part of the enjoyment here too. This did really please a lot of people. And I think there's going to be bits of goodness in this regardless. And that's why I kind of sucked it up and said, all right, fine, I guess I'll do the review this week. But for sure, we will definitely have our eyes glued to Impact and the movement and the different moving pieces and the booking going forward. And ultimately, who's going to be the one to bring the gold back to Impact? Yeah. That seems to be the next chapter in this story. Who will be the hero? So, well, anything else you want to say before we roll out?
No, I mean, I took the reins here for you this week, and I'm always happy to do it, but I'm glad you're coming back a little bit. It's a step-by-step process. We'll work through this every week with all of you who are watching. So thank you so much for staying tuned. We'll get through this together.
I gotta give you a nickname. You're like Dr. Miranda today, giving all these therapeutic vibes and all that. Like, man, the therapist Miranda is of some sort. So
the doctor's in.
I hear that. Well, as always, folks, thank y'all for tuning in again. So you know exactly when we're going to go live. You definitely want to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. I know you hear it all the time on YouTube, but seriously, because of the unpredictability of when we might go live, because we are providing coverage from coast to coast. Miranda on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast, and we try to fit a nice little happy medium. But nonetheless, we will be here each and every Friday to make sure that we get you all our hottest topic coming out of Impact Wrestling weekly. So the only way you're gonna know when we're gonna go live is by hitting that notification button. But until next Friday, folks, everybody be safe, be positive, and send a prayer to Rich Strong, man. Because at this point now, my heart goes out to that man.
Ooh.
But that'll do it. And thank y'all for tuning in.
Bye.